All right, everybody. Better Game Podcast, episode 2. I'm with Coach Mac. What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's going on, dude? How are you guys?
And we got a special guest, one of our best friends, Rob Weisbaum. How you doing?
What's up? Hey.
So,
Good, dude.
I want to tell you guys a story from this morning because it kind of relates to our podcast. So,
It better be good, Tom. I mean, bring it.
try my best. So, I woke up at 4 like I normally do. I was doing my morning thing, doing a little meditation, and then I got poked by my daughter, and she was awake at 4:30. So anyway, that's way too early for a kid to be waking up. Would you guys? I hope you guys would agree with that. So
Or
she
people in general.
yeah, and I have a long routine that I do. So anyway, she was a little whatever. So I was like, all right, so let's go to the gym. You can color while I lift weights because I need to cheer up too. But then she really wanted to lift with me, and there's nobody there. So she wanted to go on the treadmill. She started doing stuff. She started watching me and started doing some of the things that I was doing, And I just noticed her whole mood just elevated. She's 5 years old, by the way, for those of you who don't know. And she was safe. Don't worry. She wasn't pumping like 50-pound dumbbells or anything. But it was funny. And then she ended up making friends with this old lady named Janet, who was really nice. And they're like best friends now. And I couldn't get her to leave. And then after it, she's just telling me, she's like, I love sleep. I love reading. I love working out. I love being healthy, Dada. And I'm like, anyway, music to my ears, because that's kind of like my philosophy. I think the healthier you are, the better your thoughts are, the better your habits are, and the better your relationships. And we had a great morning after that, even though she woke up at 4:30, which is way too early. But to give you guys a little background, the audience a little background about me, I've been coaching for 20 plus years now and teaching, and now I have a new business called The Better Game. That's where this name of the podcast comes from, and that's what I focus on: mindset, habits, health, and relationships, because it's all intertwined. I'm sure you guys would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So to introduce you guys are both ex-roommates of mine. Coach Mac, we lived together in college, right?
Yep. You're welcome.
It was a long time ago. I remember you used to fall asleep on the couch with like a Hot Pocket in your mouth.
Yummy.
And when I moved across the country, I didn't even have a place to live. And I called Rob, and I was like, and I just crashed there one night, got a place to live the next day. And then like a year later, you and I were roommates for a while.
You're welcome.
No, it was awesome. It was awesome. And then you moved to Colorado maybe a few years later. But these two know that this past year for me has been a little rocky, been crazy, a lot of changes for me. And, one thing, like I said, we're going to talk a lot about relationships. You guys helped me, both of you, enormously in the past year, which I'm so thankful for. And so to have you both on, I really appreciate it. And we're going to get into a lot of things about that. But with my clients, and this is what we want to do on the podcast, is I like to think of giving them, and my students too, giving them tools to deal with difficult times, like a toolbox. I was thinking about, you guys ever seen Daddy's Home with Will Ferrell? And I think it's Daddy's Home. And Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg? Yeah.
Remember when he tells Will Ferrell to get his toolbox and he comes back and there's just like, I think there's like a tampon in there. Giving people tools, because I think over the years, I'm sure you guys would agree, we've accumulated a lot of tools to deal with life's adversity and leadership. We're all coaches, we're all leaders, and how to deal with that stuff. So that's what I hope. So I hope our audience get some tools from us that they can use with either it's parenting or friendship or anything, and that's what we're going for. So, Coach Mac, I've been talking too long. Go for it.
Yeah, man. So I've been coaching, for 25 years and still kind of at it on the side, doing some one-on-one, some small group stuff, and just working on skill development. Used to be a teacher, taught for 9 years, and all that kind of like combined into me jumping on this thing with you, jumping on the podcast. The podcast, bro. So I really think that leadership and your ability to connect is massive. I think that when you have kids, you have parents, you have an audience, you have people in general, like you don't need to be a leader, but you need to be able to connect. If you are in a position to talk with folks in general, you need to have that relatability, that connectability. And that's what I loved about teaching and coaching, was finding a way to be able to really connect to those guys and make sure that my message was coming across in a way that stuck. And I had awesome coaches who did the same thing. I had some coaches who just wanted to bark and tell us to go run laps for 20 minutes. Not gonna name names, but definitely had that. And it didn't work. We don't have the connection to this day. But those other guys, we really had that. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring on our buddy, our awesome friend, Rob Weisbaum, AKA Fire Chief Weisbaum. So, Rob, I'd love to understand, well, I know your story, but I'd love for you to actually talk to the audience and kind of tell them your story because you have a very unique and entertaining and interesting story that I think it's going to be, people are going to love it. People are going to be intrigued. People are going to definitely have some questions that they want us to ask you. So lead us off, throw it out there, and tell us what's up, man. And thanks for
Awesome.
coming on.
No, thank you. I love seeing you guys, and I love seeing where you're at today. It's awesome, and I've been looking forward to this all day. It feels good, and today has been almost kind of a, not necessarily a somber day, but before coming here, myself and one of my captains went to a town over because we had a line of duty death recently with a helicopter pilot fighting wildfire. And so they do something called the Honor Guard Watch. And basically, you go and take shifts and you stand at a funeral home until the body can be transported back to their home. And so we've all taken shifts. And so I actually just got back from that a little bit ago. So while that's sad, it's very honorable, and we're doing our part to make sure nobody goes home alone, right? And that's the idea around that. For me, I am Rob Weisbaum, and grew up with these fellas. My background is I am a fire chief in Colorado in a town called Crested Butte. It's a ski town, destination, touristy, awesome. There's one road in, one road out in the wintertime, and it's paradise. We don't have a stoplight anywhere. We don't have chain stores. And our year-round population is about 5,000, but during our peak seasons, it can get up to 20,000. And I've had the pleasure of serving this community for 8 years. I've been on the job in total for 26 years at this time. And never in a million years did I think I would be a fire chief, nor did I aspire to be a fire chief. But I'm so glad that I am, because I've learned incredible and invaluable lessons through a lot of failure. And we'll get around to that part. But I think, for me, what really solidified everything as far as where I'm at today is you wouldn't be able to tell it by looking at me, but I have an autoimmune disease that affects my central nervous system. It's called multiple sclerosis. And I got diagnosed about 3.5 years ago. And at that time, I was 2 pounds shy of 300 pounds, heaviest I've ever been. And I was pretty sad in life. I was extremely stressed out at work. I wasn't in a relationship with anybody. And I was really focused on the mission of the department and the organization in this community. And I really set aside everything about my own life to focus on work. And then even predating that, back when I was young and just actually getting into this career, I was in a skydiving accident, and I broke my body beyond repair at that time. And what a tough time as a new paramedic. I've been on the job for a couple of years at that point, only to hear my doctor say, start looking for a new job. And I had finally found a job that I was very passionate about. I loved the idea of service to others and providing that to people. And that's what really hit home. It got very saddening to hear that I might have to look for a new career, having just found what I discovered to be my calling. And so I actually was able to use that to say, I'm not going to accept that answer from you. And I'm going to do everything in my power to define my future. And that means I'm just going to work hard and put forth the effort. And at the end of the day, if that didn't work out, then it didn't work out and I'd have to discover something new. But luckily, by shifting my mindset and saying, hey, I can do this, I actually worked my way through those issues. During the MS initial phase of it, one of the biggest defining moments also in that was I had to make a determination on whether or not I wanted to be part of this world anymore. And I had somewhat of a divine intervention. I'm not a religious person, but I'm spiritual by nature for sure. And I had this overwhelming sense of warmth that came across my body. And all I could do was equate that to what true love actually means. And that was for my family. And so it was almost like the metaphorical, let's flip the light switch on, time to make a change. And, despite all the challenges and adversity I was facing, that was just one of those moments that said, time to take charge of your life and do what you got to do. And then use that and share everything you're learning through this process to others so you can help others through their hardest times also. So over the 26-year period, it's been quite the journey of up and down. And it's been a big, big challenge, but I've really enjoyed it because it's really taught me kind of what it means to live life, understand myself as a person, accept who I am as a person, love myself as a person, and know that there's a lot of noise out in the world that does you no good, right? And that can be very distracting at times. So I am now able and comfortable in a position where I can share a lot of what I've discovered and learned over the time to help hopefully inspire and benefit others.
Well, let's jump from right there. Like, because I mean, you have this massive story. Like, I'm sure we could give you a microphone and you could just talk for the next 2 hours about all the things or more. 26 years, the whole journey, ups, downs, where you are right now. You're still in an amazing position. I remember when you had like the beard. I remember the weight. I remember like, I was like, man, like, does he have cheekbones like underneath that hair? Like, what's going on? But yeah, man, like where you are now, what would you say is like, what was the turning point? Like, because there are a lot of things. I mean, you had the accident, you got the diagnosis, you felt like there were things happening. I remember like your dog passed away, like all kinds of things. So like, what was the real turning point where you were like, there's something has to change right now?
Yeah, I think through the growth of my profession, my career, and just my position as a whole, everything for my job, at least me personally, is around the service of others. And that has been a foundational concept for me, and principle philosophy since day one. And so when that light switch hit and I got a lot of mental clarity to say, I am going to use this, one, to not only do everything in my power to live the healthiest life I can for the remainder of my days, but I'm also going to use that to help others. And I think what the defining moment really was, wow, I am actually considering leaving this world. And when it was literally like that I felt that, I was like, I have to now use this. I don't want to waste that. And, some people don't get that opportunity. I am very fortunate I got that opportunity. And I said, I'm not going to let it go to waste. So that was very easy for me to transition and truly say, okay, the mindset's now turned over and we are going to focus on what I'm going to do to get better and how I'm going to help others. And more specifically, not only others, but others that might face whatever level of adversity they may face. A lot of my focus has been around people with autoimmune diseases, S community, and more so first responders as a whole. Our job by nature is stressful, and we have seen an increase in depression, alcohol use, substance use abuse, kind of isolation, you name it. And I don't like to see where that's going. So how can I be a person of voice to say, I'm going to help my second family, the first responder community, try to understand what can we do to be healthier so that we can better serve one, ourselves, our family, our friends, and then the community.
Awesome.
I love that. Like some great advice. I had like in high school, my dad passed away I don't know if you guys remember when I was a freshman, but I kind of the similar type of thing. I remember being depressed, and I don't know what happened. It just kind of hit me one day, and I think you hit on this, Rob. Is when you're really sad, you start to realize that all you're thinking about is yourself. And then when you change that view, I think there was one day, like junior year high school, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna focus on other people. Everything shifts. One of the best things you can do when you're sad is go help somebody else who's sad. It's a great little because now you're helping people and they're thanking you for it, and it just makes you feel good. But
It's a good distraction.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you talked about, Rob. I see it with kids, and the mental health these days it's a problem. People are struggling mentally, and a lot of time they're by themselves, they're on their phone, and when we're by ourselves and we're isolated, it's a lot of time to think about our problems. And especially for younger people that don't have the experience that we do. It's hard.
Yeah. It's I'll share this little story that happened the other day. And a lot of it is really revolves around patience and knowing that you're doing good and you're trying to help others. I created the first support group through the National MS Society specific to first responders a few years ago, and it hasn't really gained any traction. And my staff partner who works for National MS Society said, just be patient, Rob. People will come to you when they're ready. And I would log on every Friday, first Friday of the month, and just wait for people to log on. And it just never happened. And I continue to do so. But I would get the occasional email or text message because I offer my cell phone. And the other day, a mother called me and she says, hey, my son is a firefighter in California. He just got diagnosed 3 weeks ago and he is struggling a lot. And so I said, yeah, let me give you a call tonight when I get home from work. And I give her a call, have a conversation with her, and said, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is what I can offer. And just that little bit of time with her selfishly gave me this feeling of I'm helping you, and hopefully I can help your son. And it might seem selfish to feel that level of self appreciation, gratitude, but I embrace it because I'm helping someone else, right? So I think, when you're thinking about helping someone else, someone framed it that way to me one time about, well, don't you think doing that so much because it makes you feel good is selfish? I'm like, maybe, but I'm okay with that because I'm helping somebody else.
Totally.
And yeah, and so I followed up, and I'm still waiting. He is not ready to approach me yet, and I said that's okay. Here's my number. Let me know when he's ready, and I'm here to help because I know how scary it is, especially in the initial event in the onset. So what the message there is, you just have to exercise patience and know that a lot of these things that we're going to talk about, take time to actually come to fruition and for people to notice the benefit of what's happened.
Well, I think
Yeah.
so. I think that kind of comes right to what I really want to focus on today.
Hey, real quick, Tom. I think that's super important. Like, don't want to get too distracted here, but like you mentioned, dad passed away your freshman year. That's when I met you. I met you at a time when like I didn't know what was going on with you. I mean, I had heard through the grapevine, but you never told me directly until probably a year or two later. And I saw a change in you. I'm not gonna lie. Like freshman year, I was kind of like, I think this guy's kind of a jerk. Like he's not fun. Something, I don't know. Like he's just not the dude that I really want to kick it with. And I only hung out with you in groups. And it wasn't until about our junior year when like things started clicking and you and I were actually talking, and it was music, it was basketball, it was other things. But like, how did you transition from dad passing away freshman year to the guy that I started enjoying hanging out with your junior year, 2 years later? What was that transition for you? Like, cause I have mine and I want to talk about that real quickly as well.
I mean, honestly, I was so depressed for 2 years. Like, I had my best friend, and that was cool. And I had my mom, but I don't know. When you're that age, you didn't know how to grieve, especially for a boy. Like, my mom wanted me to go to counseling, which I should have done, but I was like, no, because try to be tough. But yeah, I think it was like junior year. I just shifted my entire focus. I was like, I'm gonna go to school and just ask people questions and try to make them smile. And like literally, there was a day I was like, man, all I do is think about how my life is rough and how depressed I am. And like from that day forward, I just changed my entire mindset. And even my mom passed away 11 years ago. And I just learned these things. Like even this past year, which was really hard for me, when I'm struggling, it's just me, me, me. And when I have those moments where I'm focused on other people, it's beautiful. Like life is good. Like, but it's just a shift. It's just a better way to live. I think anytime we're thinking about ourselves too much, it's just a recipe for anxiety and depression.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at is I had my situation, which was my mom passing away. And the topic of this podcast episode is not death, but like, it's part of life and we have to deal with it. And my mom passed away when I was like 25 years ago. And in that moment, it was tragic. It was random. It made no sense. It was like, why is this happening? All of a sudden she's gone. Why? Lots of internal turmoil. And I couldn't get past it without external help. And the external help was basketball, was coaching. And I was invited to come back to Pioneer High School and start coaching. That was my changing point because you mentioned this before, Tom, is and Rob did as well, like having a healthy way, a positive way of being distracted. That was my outlet. I got back on the basketball court. I got in front of kids who were happy. I got into a leadership role. I got into a pattern of how can I help? I can't just focus on my own stuff. And it changed my life immediately. And it changed the trajectory as well, obviously, because I'm, 25 years later, I'm still coaching basketball and taught for 9 years. So I think that's super important. But yeah, I just wanted to get your perspective on that real quick.
Well, I think that ties into what I want to focus on is and especially with Rob, like with difficult conversations, because this comes back to thoughts. Okay, so like if I go back to high school, did I want to talk to my friends about losing my dad in a car accident? Yes, but I did not because I was scared. I was scared I was going to start crying. I was scared of making you guys uncomfortable, right? So I avoided it. I didn't want to go to counseling because I thought therapy was for the weak, maybe. I don't know. I was a 15-year-old boy, right? So, and I think this is one of the most important aspects of leadership and just in life is these hard conversations because we have them, we should have them a lot, and often we avoid them because they're uncomfortable. So I wanted to get Rob and you, Tobias. I want to get, obviously, Rob, you work in fire, like You must have hard conversations. You have employees. I have students. Mine are probably a little, middle school basketball is not quite as serious as firefighting, but you still have tough conversations. So I'm curious, Rob, like how you go about that at your fire department.
Yeah. This is something that we work on, and it's trying to have a cultural shift here, at least at this organization. The way I look at it, difficult conversations, while they're difficult, is actually a sign of respect for the other person. Because when you find the courage to have that conversation, you are showing them that you care about them and yourself and the organization. And you do it timely, and you always do it respectfully. And anytime you withhold those conversations, the only thing that has ever happened that I've noticed is thoughts and ideas start to fester. And the situation that initially began and warrants that conversation spirals out of control. So the quicker we actually address those conversations and identifying with that person, that employee that said, hey, we are going to have a difficult conversation about this so that it's never a surprise. That is a very key component, is anytime you call somebody into the office or sit them aside, that you let them know that that conversation is going to be tough. It actually shows a level of caring and compassion for that person. And ultimately, what we find and what I found is by the time that conversation is over, we're all in a better place. And I have been the person that has delayed those conversations or have avoided them, and they have done me no favors. And so, I make it an important practice of mine to now, one, try to have those often if I need to, and I take care of them immediately. In fact, the other day I just had one that was very uncomfortable for me, in the sense that I had this conversation with one of my board of directors, and we're going through some transitional changes in our organization where essentially there's a restructuring at the upper level of leadership, and it's going to force me to reapply for my job. And talk about being in a weird place right now. And so we had a board meeting that was a little contentious, and I was listening to the words that were spoken by this individual, and it really was unsettling, not only to me, but I had a lot of people on my team in the room, other leadership staff in the room, and we started to speculate after the meeting was going on. It leads to anxiety, uncertainty, uncomfortable feelings. So I come into work the next day and I said, I'm a straight shooter. I gave this person a call. I said, come into my office if you have a moment. I got to talk to you. And this is a person I report to. And so they agreed to come in, and I said, hey, I have to understand where you're coming from with what you said. And they explained, they said, well, how do you feel, or what do you perceive as what I said? How did you interpret that? And I said, what I heard was, you don't have trust in the leadership team. And I said, I have to understand what it is that doesn't give you trust in me and the other members of the leadership team. And guess what? It was a misunderstanding in how the wording was phrased. So we could speculate all day long, but until you hear it from the other person, right, you don't know what you don't know. So we have to give the benefit to that other person to let them explain themselves. And they might say at the end of the day, you're right, I don't have trust in you, or I feel this way about you. That's okay. That will then prompt the next part of the conversation of saying, sweet, how can I learn from it? What can I do to get better from it? Or I think you're wrong altogether. But it opens up the opportunity for conversation in a whole. And we spoke for over an hour, and we left in a good place, probably in a better place. And I think what the recognition was, it's like, wow, he's coming to me and he's calling me out because I know, one, it seems like he cares and he wants to understand. And that alone creates this level of mutual respect to a certain level. I mean, certainly there will be people that don't respect each other, but regardless of that, having those conversations allows a two-way street for each member, each person to share their side of the story. And I think that's the important piece that we're missing. So we have to continue to find ways to do that and do it more often. And it could be the smallest thing in the world. It doesn't have to be large scale events. It could be something someone made you feel a certain way. It could be very minuscule, or it could be great. Regardless of that, give the respect to that person to let them explain themselves. And that way you can explain yourself too.
Yeah, man. First of all, I love how you just casually just dropped a sweet in the middle of all of that. It must have been 80. But like when you have, whether it's in leadership or not, it's a relationship. Like Tom and I, we've been talking. We've had some. I don't think we've had any battles as of recently, but we've had like semi-tough conversations around topics that neither one of us initially really want to have, but we talked about them. And we've all had those. But for you in this role, like when did you get to a point where you were like, I can do this and I don't have this like, oh my God, this fear like inside of me, like I can just do this because this is what I need to do. And I ask this because I've had a relationship or 2 or 3 or 18 where like I should have said something. Someone else should have said something. No one said anything. And I've had a couple where like we actually did have good conversations and it was open and it sucked. Like I didn't want to have the conversation whatsoever, but we had it and we had it freely. And the outcome was way better, even though it was still maybe not the best outcome that we wanted. It was better than what it would have been had we just closed our mouths and just kept on trucking. So when you get to that point where you're like, I can do this and it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So for me, I have become so comfortable with who I am as a person through all the work that I've done on myself. And knowing that and knowing who I am, truly am, has given me the strength and the courage to be able to say, okay, I can articulate my message. I can come from a place of respect, clarity, and fearlessness out of the message I want to get across. So here's another component of that. Kind of all the drama that we've been recently seeing here. One of the things that I needed to know as I am going to fight for my position is, am I truly supported in my role at this organization? And certainly there are some people that would say, no, you're not. Majority would hopefully say yes. But I don't want to take guesswork and create some sort of story out of that. So what did I do? Talk about really uncomfortable. I sat down. So my crews work 48 hours on, 96 hours off. There's 3 shifts. So I sat down with each shift and I said, all right, all this is going on right now. I intend to fight for my position in this job. I said, but there's one thing I need to know from you as the team. I said, I value all of you and I'm here to grow all of you. But as a leader, I have to feel the same way and I have to hear it from you too. And I just asked the question just like that. I said, do you value me as your chief and do you support me as your chief? And I said, I need you to answer honestly, because if I'm not wanted here, that will hurt me. But at least I know and I can move on because I want you to be supported and have a leader that you can trust and appreciate and feel supported with. And I'm a grown adult. I know who I am, and I'm happy to move on if you feel a certain way. Talk about vulnerability, right? It's just like, okay, now I'm sitting here sweating. What are they going to say? Are they going to say, "Yeah, we don't like you. It's time to move on, dude"? And thank goodness I haven't gotten that. But I was willing to put that risk there for the sake of the overall health of the group, the community we serve, because I've grown so comfortable with who I am, knowing that no matter where I land, I'm going to be okay. And that's taken a ton of work to do between health, wellness, reading, connection with other people, and really being able to have a small group circle of trust that you can really rely on. And I think, making sure that, you use that level of vulnerability with some tact, and it's not for everybody, but you have to monitor it and use it wisely. It's gotten much, much easier through practice and failure to get good at this task, this thing, having these conversations. So I make it a point to have them more and more and more, knowing that I'm going to continue to fail so long as I can learn from it, grow from it, and continue on. And it's worked.
Nice.